Here stands a man and his Jimny, as he gazes lovingly into the engine bay, drinking his tea and checking his Tinder messages. What are we doing today then, boss man?
Well, hopefully, we're going to be curing a bit of squealy noises.
Squealy noises?
In the engine.
Where are you getting squealy noises? About your personage?
Other than the groin, in around here with these rubber belty jobbers.
So that's the, what, power steering
and alternator, fan belt jobber, mixture of belts, all of the belts on the front.
So belts on the front, squealing.
Get rid.
Yeah. Did we check the tension on those?
We had a little poke at them and a bit of a twist, which is occasionally a method for checking them, and they do feel a little bit slack, and so I do have replacements and we'll get them switched-a-roo.
Yeah, as I recall when we checked them, we decided that they were slack, but there's no more adjustment left in the system. You can adjust the tension on these, but even with its full range of adjustment, they were too slack, so definitely time to replace. I think somewhere we've probably got the figure for that in terms of the amount of deflection. Do you know that off the top of your head? Insert a number here. So there was that number, whatever that number was. Hope that was helpful. We're going to get on with this job now, so first things first, make sure you've got your trapper hat on.
Boom.
Ciarán's still on Tinder. He's obviously got some
hot dates lined up.
Delightful lady interested. So while Ciarán's doing that, I am going to remove this bolt here and this bolt here. They are 10mm heads on those, and that will allow us to just have a little bit of play in the radiator so that we can get better access down to the belts.
Before you start that, John, just need to stress one important point, is that you must make sure that the engine is off or not running before you start work on this job.
And how can you tell if it's running or not?
I think we're off.
It's just because it's quiet.
Quiet, yeah.
If it's quiet, if you can rest your tea without spilling your tea, then your engine's probably off. So yes, the engine, make sure your engine's off. And cool, actually, I would imagine, because some of these some of these hoses might be a bit hot. Some of these hoses might be hot if you've just run your engine, but this is alright, so yes, anyway. Bolt, move the radiator. Okay, so the radiator can now move a little bit just in that direction, just to give you a little bit more room. We've got to loosen off this thing down here.
It's the tensioner for the that power steering pump belt, which on this one here, if you can see, that is a 12mm head, and there's also another one that is recessed just inside there, so it will need a little socket in for it. The first one there keeps the pulley attached to the block, whereas the other nut is the adjuster for the tension on that wheel.
Right, which one first then?
Top one.
Okay, excellent view there. There we are, that's a little bit better. That's the 12mm thing that we've just released there.
No more tension on that, so that's loose. I can more or less do that one. The little fang up.
Yeah, but that's enough, is it? Don't need to come out.
Not just yet.
Alright. Right, so that first one's loose. Now we're moving on to the second one. If I can come down here and show you where that is relative to the other one.
It's kind of like feeding it in between the blades of the fan to get your best access.
Yeah, it's a little bit recessed relative to the other one, but you need to loosen that one off. So we'll do that one now.
We've got a bit of movement now in that belt, so I think we should just be able to, just slide off there. You see that pulley's got pretty loose.
So this is the power steering one, is that right?
Yeah. So it's just a little fiddling around, and that's more noises. There we go.
Right, cool. Let's have a look at the number on that one, just in case anybody needs to know.
for PK 850.
Yeah, a Gates Micro VX 4 PK 850. It's a good vintage. And the replacement one. Woohoo! Let's see if they're the same size.
Just my morning workout, really. They are seemingly the same length still, but that new one should hopefully have a bit more tension to it.
Right, so, well, we've got the old power steering belt off. We're going to take the old fan belt off now, and to do that we need to create some slack in the system, and that is done by loosening this 12mm bolt here. You can see that's got a little slot there which allows the alternator to move backwards and forwards and create a little bit of slack in that system. So we're going to do that. That's what we're going to do now. It's a bit tight. I'm going to stick a bit of WD-40 on it.
Missed all the good clicky noises there. That's loosened off.
Ciarán's rooting around in the bottom of the alternator there. It's got a socket with an 8mm hex head on it.
Got the old Allen involved.
You got Allen involved. It's slackening that off, which is pinching the bottom of the alternator. So now it's loose. We should be able to move this alternator backwards and forwards a little bit. Hard to film with one hand, but that is moving a little bit. So we should be able to move that this way, which will slacken off the belts so we can remove it, or the belt so we can remove it. Right, you can see a little bit more clearly now that the alternator will move. It does require quite a bit of strength.
If you hold that up there.
If you hold it, then it creates a slack in the belt there, and Ciarán is peeling that off.
There we go.
Right, once you've got that belt loose, then it's just a case of working it around the blades of the fan there. And you can see that we've removed that completely. What number's that one? Let's have a look at the number on that one.
This one is the 833. The one that I have been provided with is an 830.
Ooh.
But I've just gone with what I've been advised. I said, give me some stuff for my Jimny. He was like, here's some stuff for your Jimny.
Right, well, we'll see if we can get the new one on then.
That'll have some stretch.
Before we put the new belts on, Ciarán's got some words of wisdom for you. Another top tip from the garage. Tell us what you know, Ciarán.
Well, stuff I've kind of discovered on the internet.
Must be true.
A suggestion being that to make sure that these, I'm going to call them pulleys, are clean of sort of dirt and debris, which might kind of cause any sort of slipping and noises.
Looks also like you're taking something off there.
Yeah, the tensioner for the power steering, removing this pulley to give it a bit of a clean down.
That was the very first bolt that we removed or loosened, so now I've removed it completely.
One thing that I'd suggest is just to go over this with rough it up with a little sandpaper or abrasive paper, just to take some of that shine off, so that it grabs hold of the belt a little better.
Right, let's do that then. Right, there we are then. I've scuffed that up a little bit. The belt will obviously go around it in that direction, as you might imagine, and so I've scuffed it in the opposite direction, in that direction. You can sort of see some fine lines there where I've scuffed it, so hopefully that'll give it a little bit more traction on the belt. Cleaning, Ciarán is cleaning. Using a little nylon bristled brush.
Plastic scrubber.
Just to scrub the pulleys, basically, just to get any crap off, any rubber dust or anything else that might be on there. Oh, that's a nice sound. Where's that coming from?
That's the one of these pulleys itself, the fan pulley. It's a nice ting to that. Christmas
That's
ting.
almost like a singing bowl, a meditation bowl thing.
Yeah.
It's got a nice... Yeah, that's got a real nice resonance to it. Feeling chilled out already. Meanwhile, over here, Ciarán's playing a tune. Give us a tune, boss man.
Okay, let's keep it festive.
I think I know this one. Metallica, isn't it? Got
Nailed
it.
it.
Got it in one. Right then, dude. What are you doing now?
Well, you've thankfully lost some of the shine off of that.
Yeah, I did a little video on that while you were in the bathroom.
Yeah. So we're just going to pop that back on. It's just the one bolt to secure it to the block, and then the one nut for the tensioning, which we won't set just yet because we haven't got a belt on.
Which way around does that go?
So imagine this way, that goes in here, it stays pretty much in that orientation onto the block.
Right. Bash it on then.
Fiddly business.
Oh, there it is, look. Going back on.
Not in any way awkward to achieve.
Not in any way awkward to film either. The perils of working in small spaces. There she blows! She's back on. Pretty loose at the moment, but on nonetheless. So moving on, we've now got to put the belts on in the reverse order of removal. So we're going to need to start with the drive belt first, and then the power steering belt.
Little wiggle around the fan to get things going.
First belt to go back on then is the fan belt, because if you put the power steering belt on, you will not be able to get the fan belt on. So Ciarán's just worked that around the fins of the cooling fan there, and back around the pulleys that it was removed from. You all paid attention when you took it off, right?
Totes.
We've got the fan belt back on then. It was a little bit tight to get on. We had to slacken off this bolt just here, which gave us a little bit more play in the alternator and made getting that belt over a little bit easier, but it is on now. So Ciarán is retightening at least a little bit the hex-headed bolt which is down at the bottom of the alternator, and then we shall move the alternator, find the correct tension and tighten everything up. So moving on. This is the tricky bit. Remember we mentioned earlier how you had to apply 100 what was it, 100 newtons of force at a set point, which is here. So that's 10 kilograms, was it, of pressure?
10 kilos or 22 pounds.
On that belt run there, and when you're doing that you should get, on a new belt, 3 to 4 mil of play in the belt. On an old belt it should be 5 mil of play in that belt there. Now, we don't actually have a way of measuring accurately 100 newtons or 10 kilograms or 22 fiddly bobs of pressure on there, so we're going to use the old rule.
Mark one eyeball.
Yeah, we're going to use the old method, which is to see how far you can twist it. Now, what that means is, if the camera will focus.
Focus.
If you grab the belt and try and twist it like that, try and twist it round, you should be able to get about a quarter of a turn, so that
and no more
is about right where it is. If you get more than that, then that means the belt's too slack, you can turn it too far. So it should be a quarter turn. So we're going to aim at quarter turn and then tighten everything up. So that'll be the bottom alternator,
the
bolt,
alternator pivot bolt,
this one and this one, not necessarily in that order. Everything's tightened up now then, all the bolts tight. We've got about 3 to 4 mil of play along there if we approximate 10 kilograms of force on there, and it's about a quarter turn and no more. So I think that, for the fan belt at least, is done. So we're going to go and do the power steering belt now. Now we're putting the power steering belt back on. The pulley itself is on with the bolt and the nut are both on there loosely, so that the pulley's still free to pivot around and give us some tension. So it's just a case of slotting the belt round all 3 pulleys. I think are the 3 down there. So there's 2 pulleys and the tensioner, isn't
yeah.
there? Yeah. Okay. So 2 pulleys and the tensioner.
Might have to go underneath.
Okay. Power steering belt's on then. Round the top pulley, underneath the tensioner, and then round the bottom pulley. We had to just back this bolt off slightly. We just slightly over tightened it, which didn't allow us to give quite the amount of movement that we needed in that. So we've just backed that off, which gave us the ability to get that on there. You still have to be quite strong to do that if you're doing it by hand. It was not particularly easy, but we did get there in the end. So now we need to find the correct tension and get everything tightened up. another top tip from the garage. There is a 10mm hex head hole in there. Try saying that quickly.
10mm hex head hole.
10mm head. You can see that Ciarán's put the ratchet with a 10mm hex into there, and what that allows him to do is to add some tension onto the pulley while you tighten up the nuts and bolts around it.
Still a little bit of a tight fit, so if you've got sort of an actual 10mm Allen, that might save you a bit of bulky space, because it's just sort of interference with the fan blade a little bit, which, you know, we've opted for doing the in brackets easier route by not removing the radiator, but that gets you some tension there.
Tension for the power steering belt then is measured along the bottom run there, and it should be 6 to 9 millimeters of movement. Is that under the same 10 kilos?
That is under the same 10 kilos or 100 newtons.
Yeah, so pressing 10 kilos of pressure onto there, it should be 6 to 9 mil of movement. So when you've got that, that's when you can tighten up the bolts and the nut on the pulley. Power steering belt's on and the tension is correct. The nut and the bolt are both tightened to 25 Newton meters. Incidentally, along the bottom run, when you've got the right amount of tension, it also seems to be about 1/4 of a turn of twist is possible. So that theoretically is everything back together. We're going to fire it up and see if we can blow this engine up.
Fire in the hole!
So that's all sounding pretty tidy, all happy with that. The last thing to do is just to put these bolts back in.
Bit more screwing
On the radiator, don't forget to do that. And then that's more or less the job done. So then, that's another job jobbed. How did you find that one?
Another learning experience, just trial and error with a little bit of knowledge from the interwebs. But I think that's going to be a very worthwhile task.
Yeah, I agree. That was a tricky one to film though. The space was limited, so thank you everyone that watched this. Thanks for bearing with us with our stupid camera angles and camera that won't focus. If you did like this video, if it was useful to you, what you got to do, give us a thumbs up.
Double thumbs if you wish.
Yeah, double
Give
thumbs.
it a bosh on that bell, get some subscribing done.
Yeah,
Because there'll be more stuff like this happening. We'll be sure to entertain.
there will. So if you got any comments, any questions, you know where we are. If you want to see more, like Ciarán says, just subscribe and it shall follow. In the meantime, goodbye from Ciarán.
Goodbye.
And goodbye from me. Goodbye.